So let's talk about finding these scholarships. How did you, let's talk specifically about your story. How did you go about finding these scholarships?
Yeah, so lots of time just spent diving into research. So there's a lot of different scholarship databases that you can use. There's everything from Scholarly to CapEx to Bright Future. There's several databases that are specifically focused on scholarships. So you type in information like your demographics, background, interests, and they narrow down the millions of scholarships to a targeted list that specifically fits you. So that's a great place to start. Sometimes those they might miss scholarships that actually do fit you. So I recommend looking at least five different databases because one scholarship database could give you a list of 20, one could give you a list of 60, and they could have completely different scholarships. So use several databases and kind of combine the best of the best scholarships that specifically target you. I actually, as old school as this sounds, in today's day and age, I just love doing like a basic Google search. It's amazing how well you can find targeted scholarships still just using a Google search. So I always recommend that people write down a list of their activities they're involved in, unique traits, things that could qualify for a niche scholarship. So there are scholarships given away for so many different reasons. There are scholarships for very common things like doing sports or academics, but there's also scholarships for being tall or short or like having red hair or being left-handed. Like, there are so many unique different scholarships. So write down anything that could possibly be a scholarship qualifier. And then you can go into Google and type in scholarships for runners, scholarships for people who love horses, scholarships for women in STEM. There are just so many different things that you can kind of target in a really targeted Google search. So you definitely need to like narrow things down as you go through Google. But if you type in the right keywords, I find that sometimes that can be even better than databases because it kind of cuts through the clutter and the overwhelm and helps you find ones that are specifically for you.
Yeah, Google's the rock star of databases. Absolutely. So,
Right?
let's talk about once you got a hold of one of these that fit well for you. How long did it take you to actually complete the scholarship process?
Well, here's the thing. The beginning of the scholarship process can kind of feel overwhelming and take the most time. But as you go along, it gets easier. So the first application, you have to think through, what all have I done for the last 4 years? What kind of things can I write down? Then you have to do your essays and get your recommendation letters. But after the first several applications, it gets easier because you've already thought through all that. So you're just basically copy and pasting and modifying things to fit each new application. And same thing goes with essays. So you typically can get about like five really solid core essays and then modify and improve them for each scholarship application moving forward. So if you take time to really craft those essays and make them amazing and really strong, then you can just recycle them and reuse them and you can get a great bang for your buck, especially if they're amazing essays that you see start winning scholarships. It's usually true that those scholarship judges on other scholarship applications are going to like that essay as well.
And how many did you end up completing throughout the process? You said you won $500,000 for your for your scholarships, which still blows me away. How many scholarships did you end up doing?
Yeah, I completed about 50 applications, which, that was a good amount, but it's funny as I've gone along, I've met people who've done 100 or 200 applications. So I definitely encourage people to cast their net very wide when they're going through the process. But at the same time, make sure you go deep and submit high quality applications. It's not just about submit, submit, submit. It's about, you know, finding the right level of depth and really putting yourself into these applications.
That's incredible. So you filled out 50 applications and you won $500,000.
Yeah, I was very fortunate. I won some of the bigger scholarships, which was amazing. One scholarship provided a full ride through a PhD, which is amazing.
Wow.
And won some other $20,000 scholarships and some larger ones. So very thankful for that.
That is incredible, incredible. So when you got your first one, if you could take me back to like you and your mom working together, and you're filling out these scholarships. Talk to me about when you won your first one.
It was so affirming because we had put all of this time and effort into it, and it's kind of scary. I think that it often holds people back from even applying for scholarships, the fear of, is it going to be worth my time and energy. So to see that first letter come in the mail was just completely overwhelming and amazing because it was like, okay, we are on the right track. This is all worth it. All the time invested is definitely going to pay off. And it was really affirming too because the first kind of scholarship information that I received back was from the Coca-Cola scholarship program, which is super competitive. They had over 100,000 applicants the year that I applied, and they kind of go in rounds. So they have like regional finalists, and you keep going through these different rounds. So that was the first bit of material I received was letting me know that I made it to the next round, which I was so incredibly excited about. I was like, okay, we must be doing something right. Let's keep going.
Excellent. And then how much was that one that you won?
That was $20,000.
$20,000. Wow. Okay. So that is a big moment, and you kept on going. You saw the results, I guess, from the first couple ones you won, took the information that was in those essays and kind of rinsed and repeat.
Well, I always would modify and improve the essays. So, a lot of the questions will be very similar. It might be like, what's a significant achievement that you're proud of? What is an area, what is an achievement you've had a big impact in? Like the questions are often worded similarly, but maybe have like a little bit of differences. So I would go through and kind of tweak them to fit each application. But yeah, it was so great because I could recycle in, especially with some of the bigger scholarships that I applied for. They required, one of my applications required 8 essays. So it was pretty nice once I had done that. As hard as that application was, it took time. I had great material for future applications.
Sure, sure. Well, I'm sure you hear of it a lot. You tell your story to people, you tell people what they can physically do, and then, sort of the negative train comes out. Well, they only give scholarships out to kids who have really good grades, and, my kid is not an A-plus student. What would you say to that person?
Well, I would encourage them to go for it because there are literally billions of dollars in scholarships given away. And I was not the perfect student. I had solid grades, but I was not valedictorian or star athlete or just like this perfect scholar candidate that people envision. I was actually number 32 in my class of 182. So I had like solid enough academics, but was not valedictorian. So I'm so thankful I did not look around my small town high school and compare myself to everyone else because I would have been overwhelmed. I would have been like, well, I'm not valedictorian. I'm not in the top 5% of my class. Who am I to apply for all these scholarships? Like, why would they pick me? But my mom just instilled so much belief in myself. And we also just did so much research to realize that these judges are not just looking for straight A students. They're not just looking for the smartest people because if you look around the workforce, the most successful people, they're not always the valedictorians. A lot of B and C students are the ones who are running companies and, they're treating you for your ailments and they're doing all these things that are just really powerful. So the scholarship judges realize that. So they're not just looking for perfect students. There's so many different ways that you can stand out in the application process.
I'm hopefully trying to dispel some myths today. And, another one that I've heard out there, I was kind of spending some time on Reddit and looking for some myths that people might have. Some people are saying my kid is not in an underrepresented or marginalized group. Are there actually scholarships out there for my kid then?
Yeah, that's a very good question. And interesting because I've heard a lot of feedback from that. Some people have been like, well, you came from a low income background or you're a minority. Like, of course you won scholarships. But it's actually interesting because the statistics show that the majority of scholarships go to white middle income students. So just to completely dispel that, that is the stats actually say that that's where they go. I think people get that myth because a lot of the scholarships are academic or a bit more merit based, and some of the louder ones that people hear about maybe have an income requirement. So people get really bummed out when they see that. But statistically speaking, that myth is not true.
I'm not sure how I feel now about hearing that. I'm hearing your response both ways because it's like, yeah, okay, never mind. Yeah, I mean, it's open for everybody. I guess is the point is what we're trying to say for everybody that, these ideas that are out there that it's only for the A-plus student or only for marginalized groups. You mentioned at the beginning, hey, if you're tall, you're short, you got red hair, I mean, there might be a scholarship out there for you, right?
So many different scholarships. It's wild. There's even one for coming up with the best zombie apocalypse escape plan.
I love it. I love it.